This is a tutorial on how to draw a cycle cassette sprocket using Inkscape. So this is what we're aiming to finish up with. So I'm just going to move that off to one side, holding control to constrain movement in the horizontal, and we've got a standard page. So I'm going to set up the view and set it to custom, and that will put the snapping controls along the top here. I'm going to open up the page properties by doing Control Shift and D, keyboard shortcut, document properties, and we've got the display units in millimeters, and the size is a standard A4, so that will do. I'm going to leave the page border on, it doesn't really matter for this tutorial. So we're all set to go. So firstly, I'm going to make sure all the snapping controls are switched on, which they are, and I'm going to create a vertical and horizontal central guide. It doesn't need to be perfectly central, but just put it roughly in the centre of the page. So if I click on the ruler at the top and drag down, and that's the horizontal one, and again do it from the side, drag it across. So now we can start drawing from this central point. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle. So I'll click on the Create Circles, Ellipses and Arcs tool here, and the snap function is ensuring that I start from the intersection of the two guides. So I click and drag, and if I then hold down the Shift and Control key, it centres it about the cross guides, and it creates a perfect circle. And this is a circle, not a path, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to Path and Object to Path. And next I'm going to resize this to 125 millimeters, and before I do that I'm going to click this icon here, which constrains the height and width the same, thus keeping it as a perfect circle. So in here I'm just going to highlight that and type in 125, enter, and now it's gone off center, so I'm going to have to drag it, and now it's centered again on the guides. Now I'm going to draw a second circle to take out the center of this one. So again we'll get the Create Circles and Ellipses tool, start on the guides, click and drag, and hold down the Shift and Control key, and I'm going to change the colour of that just so that we can see it to blue. No, we'll have green. So I'm going to click on this colour down here. If I click, simply left click it, it'll change the fill colour to green. If I hold down the Shift key, it will change the stroke or the outline to green. So I'm just going to click green, and there we are. And again I'm going to change this to a path, object to path, and I'm going to make the size of this 77.5. Again I've got the padlock key clicked, so 77.5, and again I need to recenter that. There we go. And now I'm going to use this circle to punch a hole in the outer circle. So to do that, I've already got this selected. If I hold down the shift key and click the pink circle, they are now both selected, and if I go to path, difference, it punches a hole in that. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut the splines on this inner circumference, and I've chosen 12 splines, which is a purely arbitrary number, and if you're making this component for yourself and copying another component, you'll need to do the same number of splines and do the appropriate calculations and measurements using a vernier caliper or a micrometer caliper to get the correct dimensions. So these are purely arbitrary dimensions that I'm going to use, but the principles apply anyway. So we're having 12 splines, so we've got to divide 360 by 12, so that makes the angular interval 30 degrees. So I'm going to use two rectangles to construct the angles to make the cutouts with. So I'm going to go and get the rectangle tool, and I've still got the snapping turned on, so it's going to snap to the intersection of the guides there, and I click and drag and just go beyond the outer perimeter of the circle. And if I hold down the scroll wheel and drag, that enables me to reposition the screen. Again, we have to convert this to a path, so we've got to path, object to path, and the keyboard shortcut for that, which if you get used to using those will speed up your work tremendously, is Shift, Control and C. So we've got object to path, and I'm going to change the opacity of that. I'm going to reduce the opacity so that we can see underneath that path, if you like. So if we go to the fill and stroke menu, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift, Control and F, and you can see the opacity there is already set to 74. It looks a little bit high to me, so I'm going to reduce it some more. That's better. Okay, and I need to make a copy of that. So to do that, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control and D for duplicate. You can also go to Edit and Duplicate. You can see the keyboard shortcut there. So now there are two of those, and I'm going to hold down the Control key and drag that so that it's to the side of it, and I'm going to change the colour of it so that we can differentiate it as well. Okay, and what I need to do now is divide the 30 degrees into thirds. So the protruding part of the spline is 1/3 and the cutout part is 2/3. I'm going to move this rectangle 10 degrees anti-clockwise. To do that, I click on it again, and that puts it into rotation mode. If I move that, you can see that there's a little cross there, and that's what it's rotating about, but I want to change that. So I'm just going to click and drag that down to the intersection of the guide, and I'm just going to zoom in to make sure I've absolutely got that. And I've just noticed that these are not actually lined up with the guide, so I'm going to move them up so that they do line up with the guides. That's important. And click on that again and again, and there you can see the centre of rotation move it down to the intersection, and now we go to the transform palette, which is this one here, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift, Control and M. If I click on that and move it back up, you can see it here, and I'm going to set that angle to 10 degrees and flick the anti-clockwise thing and click apply, and then I'm going to do a similar process to this one. Click again to get the centre of rotation visible, drag it down. I'm going to zoom in to make sure I get it absolutely on the intersection. There we are. And this time I need to do it 20 degrees clockwise. Enter 20 there. Click the clockwise rotation and apply. So now we've got guides to create our spline cutout. So now we just need to set the depth of the spline, which is actually 4mm. So we need a circle which is 8mm greater in diameter than this inner diameter. So that's going to be 85.5. So I'll get the circle tool, and again hovering over the intersection, click and drag, hold down the Shift and Control, and again we need to convert that to a path. We'll go path, object to path, get the select tool, and again with the padlock symbol clicked, type in 85.5, and again we need to centre that about the intersection of the guides. So there we go. So now we have the construction in place to draw the spline. So I'm going to draw the cutout part of it, and for that I'm going to use the Bezier tool. I'll click on that and hold down the Control key and rotate the scroll wheel on the mouse to zoom in. Press down the scroll wheel to reposition it, and I'm going to start at this corner. Click once, click again at this corner, and because we've got snapping on, it snaps to the corner, and then hold down the scroll key, drag down, and it's purely arbitrary down here. It doesn't matter how far we go as long as we're on this line, to make sure we have a line pointing to the centre of the object. So click on that. I'll hold down the Control key to constrain to horizontal. Click on that one. Hold down the scroll wheel to drag, and when we get to the start, again it turns red, and we click on that, and we have created a path. We don't want it to have a stroke. At the moment it's got a black stroke. So if I click on this X here, holding the Shift key down, it will remove the stroke, and we'll give that a, I don't know, a blue fill. And I need to form this edge into a curve which corresponds to this circumference here. So click on the Edit Path by Nodes button here, and if I click and drag, that will snap nicely to that curve, and we've created the pattern to cut out the spline. So we no longer need the construction elements, so we can click on the green circle and hit the delete key and click on one rectangle, hold the shift key down and click on the other rectangle to select them both. Again, hit the delete key. We don't need those anymore. What we do need to do is ensure the center of rotation of this cutout pattern is centered on the intersection of the guides here. So click on that, click on it again, and here's the center of rotation, and drag it over here. I'm going to zoom in to ensure we get it precisely on the intersection, and we have. And now we're going to use the transform tool again and rotate a copy of this through 30 degrees, and then repeat that process to get 12 of these cutouts. So we've already got the transform panel up here. Remind if that is Shift, Control and M. We need to alter that angle to 30 degrees because it's 360 divided by 12. And we're going to rotate it clockwise. That's arbitrary again, but we'll keep to that. So before I rotate it, I need to duplicate it. So we'll go to Edit and Duplicate, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Control and D for duplicate, and then we click Apply, and we repeat this process. So Control and D, Apply, Control D, Apply, and so on all the way around until we have 12 of those. Now we need to select all of those together and combine them into one path. So we've got that one selected already. Hold down the Shift key and click on each one in turn. Now they're all selected, and if we go up to Path and Union, keyboard shortcut for that is Control, Shift and Plus. So they're all one path now. We hold down the Shift key and select the pink circle if you like. So they're both selected now, and we go to Path and Difference, and there we have our 12 element spline cutout. So the next step is to do a similar process, but this time cutting the teeth in the outside of the sprocket. So to help setting that up, I'm going to introduce another guide which is going to be tangential to the top of this circle. So we just click on the ruler and drag down, and that's nicely in place there now. So the diameter of the teeth for the chain is 22 millimeters on this scale. As I say, these are arbitrary values, and if you were producing a sprocket for real, you would need to take careful measurements of your chain to determine not only the sprocket size, but also calculate the circumference of the wheel that you were cutting them into as well. So if we get the Create Circles tool, and we've got snapping turned on as before, click on the intersection of the two guides and drag out, hold down Control and Shift and create a perfect circle. Convert that to a path, Control, Shift and C, and using the select tool with the padlock icon clicked, we'll just type in 22 there, and again we need to center that up onto the intersection. There we have it. And the same as we did with the splines, we need to move the center of rotation to the center of the sprocket. So click again to set it into rotate mode. Click and drag the center of rotation. I'm just going to zoom out and zoom back in again to get it close to the center. Zoom in even further. And then we have it snapped onto the center. So now what we're going to do is duplicate this, and we need to rotate it through 12.857 is the angle that I've calculated. So if we do Control and D for duplicate, sorry, it's Control and D for duplicate, and we'll do it clockwise. Click Apply. Sorry, it's double that. I don't know why I've ended up with half of the value, but it doesn't matter. We'll just click Apply twice. Control D again, and so on until we end up with 14. So we have 14 patterns to cut out the sprocket, and as we did with the splines, we need to select them all and do path union to make them into a single path. So I'm holding down the Shift key, clicking each one in turn. Then we go to path union, and now with all those selected, hold down the Shift key again and click on the pink circle. So they're both selected, and we go to path and difference, and there we have our sprocket wheel with a splined center. And obviously, if you want to make large versions of this, you would keep the sprocket tooth size the same, and you would need to calculate the angle for different numbers of teeth, and you also need to calculate the circumference of the circle to get the same sprocket spacing that you would. So that's an idea of how you can produce a repetitive cutout using the duplicate function.